Hi everyone and welcome back. I decided starting this new year with what I believe is the nicest portable digital audio player that passed through these hands. HiBy RS8 is quite pocketable as you can see, but this is a very heavy-duty unit and it will also cost you a pretty penny, coming at $3,299 US. So yeah, this is very high-end material. I've been using this one since summer 2023 and I have plenty of experience with its UI, build quality and ultimately sound quality, so let's check it out. I'll start by saying that we're looking at a full titanium body with a Corning Gorilla Glass on top with oleophobic coating, so this one won't get fingerprints and it won't scratch so easy. The titanium body is great looking. It's made from a single piece of titanium, which is actually quite amazing, but this one will leave the fingerprints and the spots and the stains pretty easily, so I do recommend using its leather case from the first minute. This one is a lifesaver and it fits it like a glove. Just take a look how everything looks. We also have the exposed back, mostly because this one will be heating up quite a lot, especially in Class A working mode and with turbo mode engaged, so this is actually a very good idea. We have some space in between the case and this back panel, so clearly this one won't scratch in a pocket, for example. So personally, I like everything about this one in terms of build quality. There isn't so much to say about this one. We have a 5.5-inch touchscreen right here, which uses an IPS panel for some great viewing angles. This isn't a big screen, of course, but you can still browse internet, you can casually play a game or watch a YouTube video. But most importantly, it doesn't consume a lot of power and it's good enough for a portable music player. If you are coming from a FiAu digital audio player, you'll be surprised seeing buttons only on its right side. So we have 4 buttons more exactly, so using this one single-handedly is doable and the learning curve is a very short one. You have all the inputs and outputs below, including dedicated line outs, a micro SD card slot on the left, all the buttons were moved on the right, and a solid volume wheel on top that offers a higher physical resistance, which I like. The surprises aren't stopping here, and as far as I know, I believe that HiBy is the only DAP manufacturer that moved to Android 12. Many others are still using nowadays Android 10, FiAu Shanling. So clearly Android 12 is much more future-proof, so you can be sure that it will support all those newest apps. Of course, this is an open Android platform, so you can install pretty much anything, any streaming app, games, YouTube, Office, you name it, anything really. The good old Snapdragon 665 is still present. This is quite an old silicone, but truth to be told, you don't need something more powerful, because more powerful means a lot of power consumption, and we don't want that with portable digital audio players. We want all that power to be used by audio circuitry, not by the CPU. However, all the newest and highest performance digital audio players are using this exact silicone, so for me that's good enough. This is one of the very few DAPs that uses 8 GB of RAM memory, so you can multitask like a champ. You can open multiple streaming applications, you can open multiple tabs on your Google Chrome, so you can multitask like a champ. This is very easy and it works very fast. That is actually quite amazing. The ROM memory has been upgraded as well, going from 64 GB on RS6 to 256 GB on RS8. So we have a lot more space for those DSD albums, for those PCMe albums. And if that is not enough for you, you can always slot in a micro SD card slot of up to 2 TB in size and just start rocking. Those 1 TB cards are right now dirt cheap, so of course you can buy at least 1 or 2, and that's exactly what I did. It works excellent with SanDisk cards if you need a recommendation. However, the biggest highlights of the RS8 is its DAC section and its headphone amplifier section. If you ever dreamt about using an hardwired ladder DAC on the go, now it's your chance with RS8. So this one uses 184 resistors and 12 switches. So yes, this is actually using an hardwired ladder DAC. This is the second generation, which was improved by 15 dB compared to the third generation in terms of dynamic range. So clearly this one will be considerably clearer sounding, more resolving compared to RS6, which uses the first generation hardwired ladder DAC. The headphone amplifier section is equally impressive. This one uses 2 op amps as a preamplifier section, and wait for it, 8 transistors, yes, 8 transistors working in either class AB or class A operation. This is actually something very unusual, very impressive. You can see op amps pretty much in any portable digital audio player, but transistors in a portable digital audio player, that is something new, that is something very cool, that is something that you usually see in desktop overkill headphone amplifiers, and I'm very happy to have them in here. But of course, all that circuitry will need a very big capacity battery inside, so they went with a 12,000 milliamp battery inside, so it can power all those impressive electronics. When it comes to raw numbers, it provides around 780 milliwatts of power per channel and 32 ohms via its 4.4mm balanced output. And although it doesn't feel like it's a lot of power, this is a very high quality power. And I'll tell you more about its driving abilities with a bunch of IEMs and desktop headphones of different shapes and sizes. There is so much more technology crammed inside this one, but I simply don't have the time to explain everything. You can check out its official webpage if you want to know more, or my written review, which I left below. It contains a lot more information. Sound-wise, the very first thing that hit me was not a lifelike tonality or a rich character that hardwired ladder DACs are having, because clearly RS8 has that as well, but it's effortlessness. Everything felt just, easily going, easily pouring down on you. Nothing is being forced, nothing is being out of place. When I'm coming from RS8 to something like a chip-based Delta Sigma digital audio player, like those using AKM silicon, ESS-able silicon, Cirrus Logic, so on and so forth, it feels like going from a battery smooth experience to something that is overly processed, something that is grainy or just robotic sounding. That is actually my impression. With RS8, everything is going smoothly, easily, nothing is being forced, everything is very easy going into your ears. Even aggressive music is not bothering anymore, something which is kind of unusual on the RS8. There is always a thin silk thread that is binding the notes together with the RS8, so you are not hearing 100 sounds, individually, but the final act, the music in all its glory. That is something that is very unusual, but you can feel that basically immediately with the RS8. The second thought that was tingling my senses was how big, how holographic, and how deep everything sounded with RS8. Now, the third generation hardwired ladder digital audio player of HiBy, which was the RS6, also had that amazing flow of the music. Now, everything was pouring very naturally. However, it didn't impress me that much in terms of scale and soundstage. I'd say that IEMs I'm is more impressive in terms of scale compared to RS6, but that is no longer the case when I'm comparing the very best DAPs with the RS8. This one is simply massive sounding on all axes, X, Y, Z, everything is big sounding, very tall, very wide, very deep sounding. I don't need a lot of time to readjust to the new sound. It simply sounds like a desktop headphone amplifier that is being connected to a desktop DAC. Before pressing play, I'm always wondering, will this one sound, amazing with orchestral work, big sounding, very airy? Will it put plenty of information to my sides and very little in the middle, or the other way, a lot of information in the middle with mono records and very little information to my sides? The thing is, all of the above is actually the case with RS8, so it changes the stage, the imaging, depending on the music that you are listening, and also depending on the IEMs and headphones that are being used. So of course, this one can be big sounding, small sounding, it really depends on the music. Although RS8 is far from being the most powerful digital audio player tested around here, offering just 780 milliwatts of power per channel in 32 ohms via its 4.4mm balanced output, this is a higher quality power compared to a regular op-amp based digital audio player. So enable that Class A working mode and also that turbo mode that overcharges the internal headphone amplifier, working from 6 volts to 7.5 volts, and you can feel that the sound is not just about how much power you have on tap, how loud everything is sounding, but also how fun everything is sounding, how deep, how spacious everything is sounding. It's a very different kind of power on the RS8 compared to a regular digital audio player, for example. When I'm listening to portable devices and when I'm comparing those to high performance desktop rigs, even if I'm using the same volume of say 90 dB sound pressure level, I can say that this one is a portable unit and that one is a desktop setup. Mostly because well-made desktop amplifiers, well-made desktop DACs don't have any kind of limitations. The sound is free, the sound is big, dynamics are going crazy, everything is very fun sounding, but with portable devices there's always some kind of limitation. Maybe it's the soundstage, maybe dynamics are not so impressive, maybe the sound is not so speedy and impactful, but there's always a limitation with portable devices. With RS8, I don't sense any kind of limitation. This one is big sounding, this one is fun, this one is punchy and alive. This one has plenty of resolution, and I do believe that the power output is also of a higher quality compared to a regular portable DAC app combo or maybe digital audio player. Sometimes with a very few headphones I'm reaching upper power limits. For example, HiFi didn't work with this one, Odyssey LCD4 didn't work with this one. However, the rest of my headphone setup worked just outstanding. And if you want the best, or my recommendation, what I've used the most, that would be Kenerton Rogner Planar, the closed backs. Amazing sounding with RS8. I've used those the most with this one, and also Meze Elite and not so much Sennheiser HD800S. That was my least favorite, but still those worked amazing, especially in Class A working mode with that turbo mode engaged. So this one was able to drive pretty much 10 planar magnetic headphones and around 5 to 6 dynamic headphones. Of course, all IEMs portable headphones, that would be no problem. You don't even need to engage its high gain most of the time. So there is enough power on top, but not for the most demanding loads out there like Abysses, DCA Stealth, Expense, or HiFi obviously. Moving on to dynamics, usually crazy dynamics are coming bundled with excessive amounts of power. That is an unwritten rule, but it's something that is working always. So if you have plenty of power, then clearly you'll have plenty of dynamics and juice and excellent driver control, especially if your amplifier can provide lots of current. That is not always true. That is mostly true, but not always. For example, in Lium amplifiers, small, cute, adorable, not a lot of power, but hold your jaw together when music starts playing, because those are very fun, very punchy, very impactful sounding. Probably the most impactful amplifiers that I have tried with my headphones. I have two Ilium amplifiers, the desktop one, the AM23R, and also the portable one, the HPA23RM, which I've used with this one. And let me tell you that this combo sounds almost like my desktop setup, which is considerably more expensive. So something like 94, maybe 93, 94% from my desktop setup, which is actually very impressive. These two can drive the HiFi pretty easily, and pretty much any other headphone that I have in my collection. So in terms of dynamics, these two are working just amazing. But this review is for RS8, not for Ilium. And let me tell you that in terms of speed, this one is not on the same level with something like FiO M17. That one is faster sounding, that is for sure. But in terms of sheer slam and kick in the balls and the bass, this one is actually quite impressive if you engage that Class A mode and also turbo mode, and if you want even more punch down low, you can enable a plugin. Wait a second, that plugin is called DRX10K Dynamics. Just leave everything at 0 and just touch a little bit the bass at 0.2 or 0.3, and it will sound just very clean but still very punchy in the bass. So if you ask me in terms of speed, this one is a 8.5 out of 10, and in terms of dynamics, 9.5 out of 10. Very impressive in terms of dynamics. There isn't so much to add about this one. If you are crazy about transients and dynamics as a whole, you can do better than RS8. You can add that Ilium HPA23R and improve this one, or you can go with something like a 5M17. However, in terms of scale, soundstage, holography, stereo imaging, honestly, I don't like hyping things to the stratosphere, but in terms of imaging and soundstage, RS8 right now is unbeatable. It's just big sounding, it's holographic, it's always changing depending on the music that is being played. If you are listening to mono records, like Beatles, you can feel that. You are listening to mono records, everything is right in front of you. When you are listening to old, very old stereo records, when headphones weren't invented yet, you can hear that very extreme stereo effect. So you have lots of sounds to your left and right, very little or nothing in the middle, and of course with binaural records, everything is just flying all around your head. So clearly it can do proper justice to soundstage, to imaging and depth. Amazing. I can go on about the soundstage, but this one actually sounds very close to a desktop headphone amplifier, to a desktop DAC in terms of layering and soundstage. I tried some of the newest DAC amp combos, which are actually bigger than this one, in terms of physical size, like XDO XD05 Pro, like FiO Q7, like Shining H7. All of those are bigger in terms of sheer size compared to RS8. All of those also providing more power compared to this one, but those didn't have such impressive amplifier stages like this one, and the DAC sections also not that impressive, and I felt that those cannot compete, any of those, with RS8 in terms of scale, soundstage, depth, imaging, you call it. This one is just more impressive. In my mind, RS8 can be beaten in terms of speed of the sound and also in terms of power output, but in terms of scale and imaging, I don't think so. When I reviewed the very first generation R2 ladder digital audio player of HiBy, which was the RS6 in 2022, I was impressed by pretty much anything except for resolution and transparency. It was clean sounding, but it was not really outstanding. It was noiseless sounding with IEMs, and it didn't raise the noise level to dangerous levels with ultra sensitive loads like IEMs, but at the same time it was not the most resolving or super detailed sounding digital audio player. For example, FiO M17 sitting near it was considerably clearer and faster and more resolving. It was just better in basically everything except for flow, naturalness, texture. RS6 was better in that regard. However, with RS8, this one uses the second generation Darwin architecture. Dynamic range went up by 15 dB, and 15 dB in HiFi is actually a lot. So resolution also plunged much higher. This one is no longer lacking in terms of resolution and transparency. You can hear all those micro details, and you don't need a lot of time to appreciate them or just to spot them. You can feel them and hear them basically in the first seconds of use. Also, I didn't talk that much, but you'll need to wait a little if you are getting this one brand new. It will need at least 100 hours of burn-in because it has lots of components inside, lots of resistors and transistors and capacitors and so on. So you'll need to be very patient until you'll start hearing it, punchy, alive, and very resolving. It was clear to me that high-end chip-based digital audio players that carry AKM silicon or ESSA with silicon, can get a slightly better measured performance compared to RS8. So dynamic range is slightly higher, resolution is slightly higher, doing great sounding and clear sounding outward ladder DACs is actually very complicated. I reviewed plenty of outward DACs around here, but from all of those, I believe only 3 or 4 units were very resolving. Actually, my own reference DAC is an outward ladder DAC called Rockna Wavedream Signature. And you can do resolving DACs, outward DACs, but those will cost you an arm and a leg. And this is why RS8 is actually costing as much, because the DAC section is actually a very special one, because it's a very resolving one. However, I wanted to hear the limits of the RS8, and I connected this one to several external headphone amplifiers, and the one that I've used the most was IEM HP823RM. That is a portable headphone amplifier, which I know that is very resolving and very punchy sounding at the same time. And sure enough, that combo, RS8 with HP823RM, was not only more powerful and more dynamic and just more lively sounding, but also more resolving and more transparent sounding. So it was clear to me that the DAC section inside the RS8 is very potent, it's very powerful, very resolving one. And I now understand why HiBy is selling separately that CR08 dock that basically transforms RS8 into a streamer and DAC for your stereo setup. It does have RCAs and XLR output, so it basically connects via line out, I believe, and it just adds some RCA and XLR outputs. And I'm probably getting that dock for myself because I want to know how this one sounds as a DAC only unit and streamer in my stereo setup. That will be quite a fun experience, I believe. Moving on to frequency response, if you like your basses to be powerful and mean sounding, punchy, but also clean sounding, there are 2 things that you should do beforehand, regardless if you're using IEMs or desktop headphones. And those are engage the Class A working mode from Class AB and also turn on that turbo mode. So Class A, what is actually doing, it tells the transistors to never switch off. They are always in the on position. That is a Class A working mode for amplifiers of all sorts, integrated power and headphone amplifiers. You can feel that the flow of the music is improving with Class A. There is a bigger difference with high-end planar and dynamic headphones, and a lesser difference, a smaller one, with IEMs, but still you can feel that the sound is simply pouring more easily with IEMs as well. Not only the flow is improving, also you can feel that the sound is freer, everything is more effortless in a way. And also turbo mode is basically overcharging its internal headphone amplifier section to work not by 6 volts but 7.5 volts. That is basically a dynamics enhancer 2000. The sound is simply livelier, punchier, and you can feel that especially in the bass. If both of these are engaged, simply fasten your seatbelts because this one will get quite mean, fast sounding and impactful sounding in the bass. You don't need that much time to readjust to the new sound. It's simply more fun sounding. The bass is amazing on this one, clear and detailed and fast and punchy, you name it. As for mid-range, while the likes of Dana Fribbs, Musician Audio and AutoGD, makers of R2R ladder DACs, are trying to boost the mid-range presence by a little bit and slightly slashing a small portion from the upper treble, I feel that HiBy didn't walk the same path. This one is much closer to my Rockna reference, Rockna Wavedream Signature DAC. This one is more, straight as a line in terms of frequency response. It's not overdoing basically anything, it's just clean and transparent. You're still getting those juicy textures of R2R ladder DACs, but you are not getting that, super sweetness blooming in the mid-range that other R2R ladder DACs are doing. I do believe in the stock form it does mid-range just fine. This is a very lifelike sounding unit in the mid-range, but if you want to increase it or decrease the presence in the mid-range, you can do that with the help of MSEB settings with plugins, so you can, make it warm, dry, dark, exactly as you want. Moving on to treble performance, I'm aging slowly like a good wine, and sadly my hearing as well. So my right ear right now measures 17 kilohertz almost, this one 17.5, so this one is slightly better. But you can still trust these rusty ears. I'm still getting offended by bright trebles, by unnatural ringing in the treble, by unnatural trebles, but all of that is not happening with RS8. This one is clean sounding, there is plenty of extension, plenty of zing, plenty of bite in the treble, but this one is not bringing any kind of listening fatigue. Getting trebles right can be a lifelong work for a few headphone or speaker manufacturers, for R2 the DAC manufacturers. But I do believe HiBy just got this treble performance right. There is plenty of spark, plenty of bite in the treble, there is a very good extension, very good detail, but none of that listening fatigue. So I do believe this is a very good performing digital audio player in terms of frequency response as a whole. Wrapping up, RS8 is an expensive digital audio player, regardless from what angle I'm looking at. However, considering that I'm basically carrying a Rockner Wave Dream signature and a Class A fully discrete headphone amplifier in the same pocket that offers me moments of joy, then the asking price doesn't seem so astronomical anymore. I appreciate that HiBy is using some exotic materials with this one, and also unusual working principles, resistors, transistors, and so on. It makes this one actually quite unique and unlike any other DAP that I have tried so far. Its build quality is top-notch, that titanium case always begs to be admired, and 8 months later it basically looks like new, so I cannot complain about this one in terms of build quality. It's impossible disliking its sound card or all those hardware presets and tons of sound enhancements, and I don't believe there's a more customizable DAP right now on the market, easily getting my stamp of approval and a well-deserved gold award. This is it. Don't forget to check out my written review that I left below. It's a very long and in-depth article about the RS8. Hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you next week with some fresh new videos.